I wrote a book called In Search of Excellence 25 years ago to the great amazement of Bob Waterman, my co-author, and I. Any number of people bought it, and then a lot of people bought it. Incidentally, it's a book that particularly any of you who are in the city, you have to read, and it's called Fooled by Randomness. And now the guy, Nicholas, whatever, Fooled by Randomness is the name, has now written something called The Black Swan. And what he suggests is you and I talk about causality of things, and basically it's randomness that we're dealing with. I mean, take In Search of Excellence. In Search of Excellence was a decent book, but the reason it took off was that all-important last 98% called luck. What this guy says effectively relative to you and me professionally is that if you're lucky enough to be born with a fair hunk of brains, and if you work pretty darn hard, the odds are you're going to have a successful career. If you have a wildly successful career, it's because of luck. And, I could spend the rest of the day recounting the 372 unpredictable factors that led to the success of In Search. As I said, nothing wrong with a book, but books that were okay sold 5,000 copies, and we probably sold 5 million. Actually more than that, I suspect, though we really don't know because of things such as pirated Chinese copies, etc. At any rate, it became, to use at least the American term, a bit of a hula hoop, and to the point that I live in a little rural state these days called Vermont. And thank God, because for a while it was like people wanted to find my farm so they could look at it. But if you live in a little rural state like Vermont, I don't know whether it's true here in the countryside, is we had a little country store called Mac's. And when somebody would say, "Where does Tom Peters live?" they would point in the opposite direction, for which I am eternally grateful. The guy who wrote the book, John Irving, who wrote the book GARP, which some of you may remember. If you read it, it makes you an utter ass like me. No, it was okay at the time, I suppose. At any rate, he became such a folk hero that people had it was paparazzi, basically. They had the long-lensed cameras that were peering across his border and so on. At any rate, it became such a popular thing that at some stage of the game, about 1984, I sort of thought if I ever hear the word excellence again, I'm going to throw up. And so I ran like hell. And then a couple of years ago, for reasons that I will explain later, I came back. And the reason that I think that's of at least vague interest is that I think excellence is an extraordinary word. And I think, in addition to the luck, that part of the reason that the book was successful is Bob and I may have been among the first who associated the word excellence with business. We expect to see it in the West End, we expect to see it in the Olympics and so on and so forth, but the notion that business can deserve the word excellence was a bit of a new idea, which to me is absurd, because there's no difference in that American football, which some of you may have seen and a lot of your countrymen did. We have 53 persons, 53 people, 53 men, 53 boys making millions of dollars, on the roster of the team. And I don't exaggerate in the least in my own mind when I say there's no difference between a 53-person American football team and a 53-person IS department, right? It is a group of human beings attempting to provide service called entertainment in the case of sport, service called whatever it is one does in a professional case, but it's the same thing. It's a group of people, if you, the leaders, are worth your salt and worth your pay, is attempting to grow, create things of value, and so on. And so the notion that an IS department is different from a football team, I find appalling. Human beings doing stuff together, or human beings doing stuff together period.